Hey guys, Thrasher here. I'm about 70 hours into Anthem. I've really enjoyed the core gameplay, but there's a lot of reviews that say the game is bad, and I don't think they're wrong. So how can those two ideas coexist? Let's talk about it right now. Okay, so before we jump into what the game gets right, what the game gets wrong, and what can be done to fix the issues the game has right now, I'm going to take 3 statements that I think encapsulate everything that's going on with this game, and it should get the general point across, and then we'll break it all down. So here they are. The game is pretty, the game is fun, the game just isn't finished. And that's all there is to it. If you want 20 to 30 hours of gameplay that you're really going to enjoy, this is a great game to pick up. The problem is, it's pretty obvious that there were development issues on BioWare's side, and EA decided that they needed to push this game out before it was completely ready, and we'll break down the reasons why it's very obvious. But this is a game that if it had another 6 months to a year, it would be absolutely fantastic, and I'm hoping that that's where it's going to move to. The problem is, it could die before then. So let's talk about what it does right, and then we'll talk about what it does wrong. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the core gameplay, the combat, the mobility, the abilities themselves all feel really good. The abilities are all very different. The priming system, the ability to set an opponent up for a combo and then finish that combo off with a different ability that can explode the combo if you're a Colossus, or give yourself an aura, or give yourself extra crit damage if you're a ranger. That all feels really good. The javelins themselves look really cool. The customization system, while it is cool in general, I felt like we were going to get quite a bit more content on the customization side, and I feel like that's just another symptom of the fact that this game just was not ready to come out, and EA decided that they needed to push it out as quickly as they could to try to recoup some money. On the mobility side of things, as you're moving around and you're flying, you're jumping in between enemies, attacking them, you feel like you're Iron Man. You definitely feel powerful as you're facing these opponents off. So now let's talk about a lot of the things that I think are done incorrectly in this game. First off, there are a mountain of bugs. I don't know how many times I've jumped into a free play or a quick play where the mission that I'm trying to work on or the event that I'm trying to work on is bugged out and we just can't complete it because one of the items that we have to collect is missing, or the opponents won't spawn, things of that nature. It's all over the place. There's all kinds of bugs with weapons. In my inventory alone, there are at least 5 masterwork items that are unusable because they're so bugged out that they cannot hurt the enemy, or their secondary perk that comes with that masterwork item just doesn't work at all. Now, outside of that, outside of just the general bugs, there's all kinds of UI issues. So this UI was obviously built specifically for console. It looks terrible on PC. It doesn't work well. I have not played this on console, so I don't know exactly how it works in that specific environment, but in general the UI on PC is absolutely horrible. There's no stat sheet whatsoever, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. We're playing a looter shooter. This game is about min-maxing. That is the point of the game. Your stats are everything. Once you get to endgame, the only thing you're doing is trying to get more loot to get better stats. We need a stat sheet. I don't know how that could be something that they missed. I'm hoping that it gets added in the near future. And let's talk about actual endgame itself. So the reason that people are going to call this game fun but terrible is because there's no end game. It's fun until you get to the end of the game. And a lot of people are going to say, well, then maybe you shouldn't have burned through all the content so fast. Here's the thing. I'm a big time min-maxer. So if I get to a point where I've got all the items that I need, but I want to get just the right rolls on things, I'll spend an extra 20 to 30 hours doing that, working on that. If you are the average player, you are going to be at a point where you have no content left to do. You've got all your items, you've got your character maxed out, you're doing the stuff that you want to be doing, and there's nothing new for you to do in the game after about 40 to 50 hours. So that tells me, even if you're a fairly casual player, you play 5 hours a week, we'll say. So you don't even play every day, but you play maybe 2 to 3 days a week where you play a little over an hour, maybe 2 hours, and you are going to run into this content wall that I've run into after about 10 weeks. So you need to have new content in the game for all of the average players within 10 weeks. The thing is, they have no legitimate extra content in the next 10 weeks. We've already seen their roadmap. We know that the next stronghold is about going to be that time frame, but that's just one piece of content which will hold people over for a couple weeks, and then the next piece of major content is a solid month after that. The problem is most players are going to be gone by that point, and here's why. Without new content, the only other option they have is going to try and get more loot, and the loot is exceptionally scarce in this game. Even with high luck builds, I'm not getting Masterworks very often, and when I do get Masterworks, they're not not the role that I need, or they're not the item that I need, so I have to throw it away. If you're a gamer and you play a game for 3, 4, 5 hours, you get all this loot and none of it is an upgrade, so you feel like you've made no progress because you haven't, people are going to quit your game. There is no reason for me to go into a game, play it for 6 hours straight, and get nothing done whatsoever when I'm very focused on trying to make progress. There's no reason for me to continue playing. And outside of the scarcity of the loot itself, there's no reason to play anything past Grandmaster 1. So this goes from hard being the highest difficulty. Before you hit max level, you move into Grandmaster 1. Once you hit max level, you start working on Grandmaster 1 to get all the loot that you need to gear yourself up to go into Grandmaster 2. The problem is when you get to Grandmaster 2 and Grandmaster 3, I've done both, mainly Grandmaster 2, because Grandmaster 3 is absolutely not worth even trying to get loot from. There's no extra loot there, and so far the loot rate is not higher in GM2 or GM3. So once you're at GM1, you're at the end of the game. So don't get me wrong, I understand what they're trying to do here, because they have this lack of content because the game got pushed out before it was ready. They're trying to reduce the amount of loot that you get from any specific set of runs, so that way you have to play the game longer to loot up. The problem is that if you're not progressing people every single day, every single session that they play, they're going to quit. There are a couple solutions to this, and none of them are perfect, because if your game comes out early, you're already in a pretty bad spot. But the first thing they need to do is go back to the loot system they had on Friday. So last Friday, there was a bug, or they say it was a bug, that increased the drop rate of Masterworks and Legendaries by a very significant amount, and people were loving it. They were getting showered with items. They weren't always the best items, but they felt like they had the ability to make progress because they were generally getting an item that they needed. Maybe it didn't have the best roll, so they had to go find some more, but that's really what you have to do in this game, is increase the loot drop rate and then let people sift through the things they want, as opposed to getting one orange once in a great while and feeling like you got shafted because it wasn't anything that you needed. Now here's the balancing act that BioWare is trying to figure out at this point. If they increase loot drop rates, people will leave earlier because they've already completed all the content. If they reduce loot drop rates or keep them where they're at, people will leave because they get frustrated with the fact that they just can't get the loot that they need to progress their character. Now you have two options here. You can either make people happy and they leave early happy, or they can get angry and frustrated and leave because of that. The better option is always to make people leave happy. A happy player will leave because there's no more content, but then they'll come back when they find out there's more content to go through. An angry player will never come back. I can't tell you how many people I know of at this point who I've talked to who played vanilla Diablo 3, or they played The Division when it first came out, and I asked them now and they're like, yeah, Diablo 3 is a terrible game, The Division's a terrible game. They think that the game that they saw in that first couple weeks is the exact same game that it is now, because people have a strong and lasting memory when it comes to pain and anger and things of that nature. So what BioWare needs to do is make sure that people are as happy as possible for whatever period of time they're playing the game, so that way when they do leave because there's a lack of content, BioWare has the ability to bring them back in at a later date once they've created more content and made a more robust looter-shooter environment, and that is pretty much how you save the game at this point. If they don't do that, this game will die off, and everyone that leaves will not come back to check it back out because they'll just assume that it's still terrible. So long story short, the core gameplay of Anthem is fantastic. I think that it could grow into potentially a very quality game, but they have a long road to go, and they have to make sure that they're making people happy on the way to get to that road. They're going to lose a lot of their player base, but at some point they will come back if you make sure they're happy when they leave. So if you haven't checked out Anthem yet, here's how I would break this down. If you're looking for a game where you're going to spend 30 to 40 hours and really enjoy that game, and you're okay with lots of bugs and general UI issues and just lack of polish, this game is for you. Check it out. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. If you're looking for a true looter shooter that you can sink hundreds of hours into, that is not this game yet. This is probably not a game that you want to spend money on yet. If you wait 6 months, wait a year, it could be a great experience, and it's going to be a lot cheaper, right? It's not going to be full price anymore, so that might be your best option. If you really want to check it out, what you could do is get Origin Premier Access, spend your $15, see what you like about the game, what you don't, cancel your Origin Premier Access, and then come back in 6 to 12 months when there's lots of content to actually go through. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. The game is pretty, the game is fun, the game is just not finished. If you guys like this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.